I was one of the ones they left behind. I want you to know that from the start because it changes how you hear everything else. When the fleet pulled back and abandoned the kill zone, I was in it, wounded, unable to move, one of the bodies the galaxy had decided to write off. I lay there in the wreckage and I watched my own people's ships turn and leave me to die, and I understood with a calm that surprised me that this was simply how war worked, that I was an acceptable loss, that no one was coming. And then the human medics came, into the kill zone, toward me, when everyone else was running away. I am Sergeant Toren of the Cass Coalition, and I am alive today only because, on the worst day of my life, a people I had been taught to think of as reckless and strange ran into the place everyone else was running out of, to drag broken strangers like me out of the fire. This is the story of that day, and of what I learned about humans when I was a dying body. They had every reason to leave and they came for me anyway. Let me tell it to you the way it happened, from the ground, from the wreckage, from the perspective of one of the abandoned, watching the only people in the galaxy who would not abandon him come charging into the kill zone. You have to understand how war worked in the galaxy before the humans, because the humans changed it, and you cannot see the change without first seeing the thing it changed. The galaxy's militaries, the coalitions, and everyone else's were old and rational, and I understand now deeply cold. We fought our wars by careful calculation, and one of the central calculations accepted by everyone, taught in every academy, written into every doctrine, was the calculation of acceptable loss. When a battle turned, when a position became untenable, when the cost of holding ground exceeded its value, you pulled back. And when you pulled back, you took what you could and you left what you could not, and what you could not take included the wounded who could not move themselves. That was simply how it was done. The badly wounded in an overrun position were a loss to be accepted, a cost of war, and you did not throw good soldiers after lost ones. You did not send the living into a kill zone to retrieve the dying, because that was how you turned one loss into 10. Every military in the galaxy understood this. It was not considered cruel. It was considered sound, the rational, responsible management of war, the difference between a competent commander and one who got everyone killed by sentiment. I believed it. I want to be honest about that. I was a soldier of the coalition, and I had been taught the doctrine of acceptable loss, and I believed it, and I had even on earlier battlefields been on the right side of it, had pulled back and left wounded behind and told myself it was sound. It was necessary. It was war. I had never thought it was wrong, because everyone agreed it was right, because the whole galaxy's way of war was built on it. The wounded who could not move were lost. You mourned them and you left them and you lived to fight another day. That was the deal. That was war. And then, on a contested world whose name does not matter anymore, I became one of the wounded who could not move, and the deal came for me, and I learned what it actually felt like to be an acceptable loss. The battle had gone wrong. They do sometimes. No plan survives a real enemy. We had been holding a position on the surface, a coalition force dug in, with the fleet in support overhead, and the enemy had hit us harder and smarter than anyone expected, and the position had become, in the cold language of the doctrine, untenable. The order came down to pull back. The fleet would cover the withdrawal and then break orbit. The surface forces would fall back to the evacuation points, and the position we had been holding would become, in a matter of minutes, a kill zone, a stretch of ground swept by enemy fire, abandoned, lost. I did not make it to the evacuation. That is the short version. In the chaos of the withdrawal, a strike caught my position, and when I came back to myself I was on the ground, badly hurt, my legs gone useless beneath me, unable to stand, unable to crawl more than a few agonizing inches, in the middle of the ground that was about to become the kill zone. And around me were others like me, the wounded, the ones who could not move, scattered across the abandoned position, all of us in the same situation, all of us understanding the same terrible thing at the same time, that the withdrawal was leaving without us. that we were on the wrong side of the line now, that we were the acceptable loss. I watched the last of the mobile forces fall back past us. Some of them looked at us. I will never forget the looks, not cruel, not callous, just sorry, the sorry of soldiers who knew the doctrine, who knew there was nothing to be done, who could not stop to carry the wounded out of a kill zone without dying themselves and getting their squads killed too. They were not bad people. They were doing the sound thing, the doctrine thing, the thing I myself had done on other days. They fell back and they left us, and the doctrine of acceptable loss closed over me like water, and I lay in the dirt and understood that I was going to die there, alone, abandoned by my own people, not out of malice but out of the cold, sound, rational calculus of war that I had believed in my whole life, and that now, finally, applied to me. I want to tell you what it is like, being the acceptable loss, because it is a specific thing, and I had never understood it until I was it. It is the loneliness. That is the worst part, worse than the pain, worse than the fear. It is lying in the dirt and watching your own people leave you, and understanding that they have done the math, and that the math says you are not worth saving, and that they are right by the rules everyone agreed on, and that no one is coming, not because they hate you, but because the rules say your life is a loss to be accepted, and you have agreed to those rules your whole life, and now they are killing you and you cannot even be angry because you would have done the same. It is the most alone a person can be, abandoned not by enemies but by your own, correctly, by the rules, with everyone's regret and no one's help. I lay in that dirt and I felt the whole cold, rational galaxy agree that I should die, and I had never felt anything like it, and I hope you never do. The fleet broke orbit. I saw it, looked up through the smoke and saw the coalition ships, my ships, the ones that were supposed to protect us, turn and pull back and leave the orbital space above the kill zone, because holding it was no longer sound, because we on the ground were already written off and there was no reason to risk the fleet for the already lost. The fleet pulled back. The sky emptied of friends. And I lay in the kill zone with the other abandoned, under an empty sky, and waited to die. And then the sky was not empty, and what came into it was the thing I will spend the rest of my life telling people about. They were human ships, small ones, not warships. I understood even through my pain, but something else, marked with the symbol I would learn, was the human medical corps, a red cross on white, the oldest and strangest military insignia in the galaxy. The fleet had pulled back, all the warships, the sound, rational warships obeying the doctrine of acceptable loss, and into the space they had abandoned, into the kill zone they had written off, came the human medical ships, going the wrong way, going toward the abandoned ground, when every other ship in the galaxy was going away from it. I did not understand it. None of us did. We abandoned ones lying in the dirt. We watched the human medical ships come down into the kill zone, into enemy fire, into the place the whole galaxy's doctrine said you do not go, and we could not understand why. There were no humans on the ground here. This was a coalition position. The wounded scattered across the kill zone were coalition soldiers, caste like me, not human. The humans had no reason to come. By the doctrine of acceptable loss, which the humans surely had too, every military had it, it was just sound. These wounded were not even theirs to write off. They were someone else's acceptable loss, no concern of the human medical corps at all. And the human medical ships came down into the kill zone anyway, and the medics poured out of them, and they ran into the fire, toward the wounded, toward us, the abandoned caste soldiers that even our own people had left to die, and they started dragging us out. I have to tell you what that looked like from the ground, because it is burned into me forever. A human medic reached me. I did not know her name yet. I would learn it, Corporal Hadley. I will never forget it. But a human in medical gear came running across the kill zone through enemy fire, the wrong way, toward a dying caste sergeant she had never met, of a species not her own, in a battle not her people's. And she dropped down beside me in the dirt and started working on my wounds with fast, practiced hands, talking to me the whole time, calm and steady. As if we were not both in the middle of a place designed to kill us. "Hey," she said. "Hey, Sergeant, stay with me. I've got you, I know it hurts. I'm going to get you out of here, okay? Just stay with me. What's your name? Come on, tell me your name, stay with me." "Toren," I managed. And then, because I could not understand it, because it made no sense, "Why are you here? You're human, we're Cass. The fleet pulled back. This is a kill zone, we're acceptable losses. Why did you come? Why would you come here?" And Corporal Hadley, working on my ruined legs in the middle of a kill zone, with enemy fire coming down around us, looked at me for half a second with an expression of genuine confusion, like I had asked her something that didn't parse, and she said, "Acceptable losses. Sergeant, you're wounded. That's not an acceptable loss. That's a patient. There's no such thing as an acceptable loss when there's still someone breathing. Now hold still, this is going to hurt, and then I'm going to carry you out of here, because that's the whole job. We don't leave people. Nobody gets left. That's the entire point of us. Now come on, stay with me, Toren. I did not run into a kill zone to lose you now." And she got me up somehow, this human half my size, got me onto her back and carried me across the kill zone, through the fire, toward the medical ships, while around us other human medics did the same, running into the fire and coming out with the abandoned, the written off, the acceptable losses, the Cass soldiers that even the Cass had left, carried out of the kill zone on the backs of humans who had no reason to come and came anyway. Corporal Hadley got me to the medical ship and went back. That is the thing I have to make you understand first, because it is the thing that broke the doctrine in me. She carried me out of the kill zone, handed me to another medic at the ship, made sure I was stable, and then she turned around and ran back into the kill zone for the next one, and then back again, and again, as long as there was anyone left breathing on that abandoned ground. I lay in the medical ship, my wounds being worked on by other human hands, and I watched through the open ramp as the human medics did the impossible thing over and over. They did not rescue one of us and leave. They did not take what they could carry in one trip and pull back, the way the doctrine would have demanded even of a rescue. They went back, every time. For every single one of us scattered across that kill zone, the human medics went into the fire and came out with a body, and then went in again, until there was no one left to carry, and the whole time the enemy fire came down around them, and they did not stop, and they did not leave anyone, and I had never in my life seen anything like it, because nothing like it existed in the galaxy I came from. We did not leave people, that was the entire thing. Hadley had said it in the dirt, we don't leave people, that's the entire point of us, and I had thought it was something a medic says to keep a dying soldier calm. It was not. It was the literal operating doctrine of the human medical corps, the actual rule they fought by, and watching it in action was watching the most fundamental assumption of galactic warfare simply refused, in real time, by people who would rather run into a kill zone than accept the thing the whole galaxy accepted. It cost them. I have to tell you that because the story is a lie if I pretend the refusal was free. The kill zone was a kill zone for a reason. It was swept by enemy fire. It was the place the doctrine of acceptable loss existed precisely because going into it was lethal. And the human medics, going into it again and again, paid the price the doctrine was designed to avoid. I watched a medic fall, out there in the fire, reaching for one of us. I watched another come back to the ship carrying a wounded Cass soldier and herself bleeding from a wound she had taken doing it. The humans who charged into that kill zone did not come out unscathed. Some of them did not come out at all. And they knew, going in, that this would happen, that the doctrine of acceptable loss was correct in its cold arithmetic, that running into a kill zone to save the abandoned would cost some of the rescuers their lives. And they did it anyway. That is the part the arithmetic cannot account for, the part that broke my whole understanding. The doctrine of acceptable loss is not wrong, exactly. It is true that sending the living into a kill zone to save the dying costs lives, that you may lose 10 saving 5, that the math is real. The humans did not dispute the math. They had simply decided that the math was not the only thing that mattered, that there are things a people cannot do and remain themselves, and that leaving the wounded to die alone in the dirt was, for humans, one of those things, a price too high to pay no matter what the arithmetic said, because a people that abandons its wounded to save its own skin has saved its skin and lost its soul, and the humans would rather lose medics than lose that. Corporal Hadley came back for the last time, carrying the last of the abandoned, and she was hurt herself by then, and she got the last wounded Cass soldier onto the ship, and she collapsed against the bulkhead beside me, breathing hard, bleeding, and she looked out at the kill zone, empty now of the living. Everyone who could be saved had been saved, and she said, mostly to herself, "That's everyone. That's all of them. We got everyone." And there was a satisfaction in her voice, past the exhaustion and the pain, that I did not have a frame for, the deep satisfaction of someone who has done the thing that matters most to them, whatever it cost, and would do it again. "You're hurt," I said to her. "You went in for us, for Cass, for soldiers who aren't even your people in a battle that isn't yours, and you're hurt, and some of you died. For us, for acceptable losses. Hadley, I don't understand. Make me understand. Why?" And Corporal Hadley, bleeding against the bulkhead of a medical ship she had filled with the people the galaxy had written off, told me the thing that I have carried ever since, the thing that is the heart of this whole story. "Because there's no such thing as an acceptable loss," she said. "I know your doctrine. We've got the math too, Toren. We know exactly what it costs to go into a kill zone for the wounded. We're not stupid. We count the same numbers you count. The difference isn't that we can't do the math. The difference is that we looked at the math and said no, not because the math is wrong, because some things you don't do, even when the math says to, because doing them costs you something the math can't see." She winced, pressing a hand to her wound. "Where I come from, there's an idea that goes way back, older than spaceflight, older than most of our history. It's the idea that you don't leave your wounded. That when someone falls, you go get them. You go into the fire, you carry them out. You don't leave them alone in the dark to die. It's not strategy. It's not even really a rule. It's deeper than a rule. It's a promise. Every one of us who puts on this uniform makes it, and every one of us who's lying wounded somewhere is counting on it. And the whole thing only works because the promise is absolute, because you know with total certainty that if you fall, someone is coming. That's what makes a human able to walk into hell in the first place, Toren. Not courage, the promise, the certainty that you will not be left." She looked at me, this bleeding human and the ship full of the rescued. "Your soldiers fight knowing that if they're badly hurt, they'll be left behind, that they're an acceptable loss. Ours fight knowing that no matter what, if they're alive, we're coming. You have no idea what that does to a person to know that. To know you will never be left. It's the strongest thing in the galaxy, that knowing. And the only way it stays true, the only way the promise means anything, is if we keep it every single time, even into the kill zone, even when it costs us, even for strangers, even for Cass who aren't ours, because the moment we start deciding whose life is worth the trip, the promise is dead, and then it's dead for everyone, including our own. So we don't decide. We just come. Every time, for everyone. That's the whole of it. There's no such thing as an acceptable loss, because the second you accept one, you've lost the only thing that was ever worth keeping. I have to tell you what was happening in the coalition while this went on, because the rescue was not the end of it. It was the beginning of something much larger. The coalition forces had pulled back, but they had not gone far, and they could see what was happening in the kill zone they had abandoned. Through their sensors, their drones, their own retreating eyes, the soldiers and the commanders of the Cass coalition watched the human medics charge into the ground they had written off and carry out the wounded they had left to die. They watched humans die doing it. They watched the doctrine of acceptable loss, their doctrine, the sound, rational doctrine of the whole galaxy, be refused in real time on the ground they had surrendered, by a people who simply would not accept the thing the coalition had accepted as a law of nature. And it did something to them. I learned this after from coalition soldiers who were there, watching. It shamed them, but it was a strange shame, not the shame of having done wrong, because by their doctrine they had done right, but a deeper shame, the shame of suddenly seeing that the thing you believed was a law of nature was only ever a choice, that acceptable loss was not a fact of war you were forced to accept but a decision you had made every time to leave your wounded, and that there had always been another option, the option the humans were demonstrating in front of you in the fire. And you had simply never taken it because you had never believed it was possible. The humans broke something in the coalition that day, and it was not a position or a line. It was the belief that the doctrine of acceptable loss was inevitable. They proved it was a choice. And once a thing is revealed to be a choice, you can never again pretend you had no choice. And that revelation was the beginning of the end of the doctrine across the whole galaxy. When the medical ships pulled out, full of the rescued, full of me, and the others, the abandoned, the acceptable losses, all of us alive who should have been dead, the human medics had taken casualties, and they had saved every living soul in that kill zone, and they had, without firing a single shot, won a victory larger than the battle itself. Because the battle was lost, the position was gone. By every military measure, the day was a coalition defeat. But the humans had changed something that day that mattered more than the position, and everyone who saw it knew it, even if they did not have the words yet. I was alive. That was the simple fact at the center of it for me. I was alive who should have been dead, carried out of a kill zone on a human's back, because a people I had thought reckless and strange had run into the fire for a stranger of another species in a battle that wasn't theirs, because of a promise they made to everyone and kept every time, no matter the cost. I lay in that medical ship among the other rescued, and I looked at the human medics tending us, exhausted, wounded, some of them grieving the ones they'd lost, and I felt the doctrine of acceptable loss die in me completely, replaced by a thing I did not yet have a name for but would spend the rest of my life serving. The simple, absolute, world-changing promise that no one who is still breathing is ever a loss to be accepted, and that you go into the fire for them, every time, because that is the only thing that makes any of it bearable. The thing the humans broke in the galaxy that day could not be repaired, and I mean that as the highest praise I know how to give. I was carried out of that kill zone, and I survived, and I spent a long time healing. My legs were never quite the same, and I walk now with a reminder of that day in every step, which I do not mind, because every step reminds me that I am walking at all when I should be dust on an abandoned world. And while I healed, I watched what the human medics charge into the kill zone did to the galaxy, and it was so much larger than one rescue, because what they had broken was not a battle line. It was a belief. The doctrine of acceptable loss had ruled galactic warfare for as long as anyone could remember, accepted by every military as a law of nature, the cold, sound, necessary truth that the badly wounded in a lost position must be left. And the humans in one afternoon in one kill zone had proven it was not a law of nature at all. It was a choice. They had shown the whole watching galaxy that there was another way, that you could refuse the arithmetic, run into the fire, keep the promise, and that the cost of doing so, while real, was payable, was a price a people could choose to pay. And once they had shown that, the doctrine of acceptable loss could never again hide behind the word inevitable. Every commander in the galaxy who left wounded behind from that day forward had to know now that they were choosing to, that the humans would not have, that another way existed, and they had declined to take it. The humans had not just saved the wounded in one kill zone. They had taken away the galaxy's excuse. It did not change everything at once. These things never do. There were those many at first who clung to the doctrine, who argued that the humans were reckless, that their refusal to accept losses would get more people killed in the long run, that the arithmetic was the arithmetic and sentiment did not change it. And they were not entirely wrong. The human way did cost more, in the short arithmetic, in medics lost going into kill zones. The argument was real, and it was had across every military in the galaxy for a long time. But the humans had an answer to the arithmetic, and the answer turned out to be the thing that won. Because Hadley had been right about the deepest part. The promise that you will never be left does something to soldiers that no arithmetic can measure. The militaries that adopted the human way, that began to build their own medical corps on the promise, that told their soldiers, if you fall, we are coming, no matter what. Those militaries discovered that their soldiers fought differently, better, braver. Because a soldier who knows with absolute certainty that they will never be abandoned, that no wound makes them an acceptable loss, that someone will always come into the fire for them, that soldier can do things that a soldier fighting under the doctrine of acceptable loss simply cannot, because the second soldier always holds a little back, always keeps one eye on their own survival, always knows that if they fall too far forward no one will come. The promise freed soldiers to be braver than fear allowed, and the bravery the promise bought turned out to be worth far more than the medics it cost. The arithmetic of acceptable loss had only ever counted one side of the ledger. The humans counted both, and the full accounting favored the promise, and slowly, military by military, the galaxy came to see it, and the doctrine of acceptable loss began, at last, to die. I was part of that change. I have to tell you that, because it is what I did with the life the humans gave back to me. I could not go back to being the soldier I had been, the soldier who believed in acceptable loss, who had left wounded behind on other days and called it sound. That soldier had died in the kill zone, and the one carried out on Hadley's back was someone else, someone who had felt the doctrine of acceptable loss from the inside, as the abandoned, and could never again be part of abandoning anyone. So I gave the rest of my service to the change. I became one of the voices in the coalition arguing for the new way, and because I was a soldier who had been left, who had lain in the dirt and watched his own fleet abandon him and then watched humans charge in to save him, my voice carried in a way that arguments alone could not. I would tell them, the commanders, the doctrine keepers, the ones who clung to the arithmetic, I would tell them what it was like to be the acceptable loss, the loneliness of it, the cold certainty that no one was coming. And then I would tell them what it was like when someone came anyway. And I watched, over the years, the thing the humans had started spread through my own people, until the CAS coalition built its own promise, its own medical corps that would not leave anyone, its own refusal of the doctrine I had been raised to believe was a law of nature. We don't leave people. The CAS coalition says it now too. We learned it from the humans in a kill zone on the worst and most important day of my life. I saw Corporal Hadley again years later. I had looked for her, I owed her my life, and I wanted her to know what it had become, the thing she'd started. She had survived that day, and many days after. The human medical corps is not a safe posting, and she had the marks of a career spent running into kill zones, but she was alive. And when I found her and told her who I was, the CAS sergeant she'd carried out, all those years ago, one of so many that she didn't remember me specifically, which I loved, because it meant I was not special, because it meant she had carried out so many that one more CAS sergeant blurred into all the rest. She was glad, deeply glad, to hear what had grown from that day. We don't do it to change anything, she told me when I thanked her, when I told her about the coalition's new promise and the galaxy's dying doctrine and all of it. That's the thing I'd want people to understand. We didn't charge into that kill zone to teach the galaxy a lesson or change how war works. We did it because you were there, breathing, and we don't leave people. That's all. The rest of it, the galaxy changing, the doctrine dying, that's just what happens when you keep the promise where people can see it. You don't keep it to change the world. You keep it because it's the promise. The world changing is just what the promise does when you keep it long enough in front of enough people. She smiled. Turns out the most powerful thing you can do in front of a whole galaxy isn't win a battle. It's refuse to leave somebody behind. Who knew? I am old now, and I have lived a long, full life that I was never supposed to have, every year of it a gift carried out of a kill zone on a human's back. And I tell this story to anyone who will hear it, especially the young soldiers, the new ones, who have only ever known the promise and do not realize the galaxy was not always like this. I tell them, there was a time when the galaxy left its wounded, when acceptable loss was a law everyone believed, and the badly hurt in a lost position were written off, mourned, and abandoned, because the arithmetic said to, and no one believed there was another way. I tell them that I know it was real because I was one of the abandoned, that I lay in a kill zone under an empty sky and felt my own people do the math and leave me, and that I have never been so alone, and that the loneliness of being an acceptable loss is a thing I would not wish on anyone in the galaxy. And then I tell them about the human medics, how the fleet pulled back, the whole great rational fleet obeying the doctrine, and how into the kill zone they had abandoned came small ships marked with a red cross, going the wrong way, toward the fire, for wounded that weren't even theirs. How they charged into the place everyone else charged out of. How they went back and back and back, until no one was left, and paid for it in their own blood, and would not stop, because of a promise older than their spaceflight that you do not leave your wounded, ever, no matter what the arithmetic says. I tell them that the humans did not bring the galaxy a weapon. Every people brings weapons. The galaxy was drowning in weapons before humanity ever arrived. The humans brought something the galaxy had never had and did not know it was missing. They brought a promise. The simple, stubborn, absolute, world-changing promise that no one who is still breathing is ever a loss to be accepted. That you go into the fire for them, every single time, whatever it costs, because the moment you decide that some lives are acceptable to lose, you have lost the only thing that was ever worth keeping. The intergalactic fleet pulled back. The whole rational galaxy did the math and pulled back and left us to die, because that was the law, because that was war, because everyone knew there was no other way. And the human medics charged straight into the kill zone. Because to them there was no other way, but it was a different no other way, the opposite one. The one that says you cannot leave a breathing person behind and still be yourself, whatever it costs, however the math runs. I was the acceptable loss, and a human ran into hell and carried me out on her back, because she'd made a promise to everyone, including me, including a stranger she'd never met, and humans keep that promise every single time. That is the most powerful thing I have ever seen, and I saw it from the ground, from the dirt, from the wrong side of the line where the abandoned lie waiting to die. I am alive because, when everyone else pulled back, the humans came. They always come. That's the whole point of them. And the galaxy is a better place, a braver, kinder, less lonely place to fight and to fall, because one afternoon, in one kill zone, a people who refused to leave anyone behind showed the rest of us that we never had to leave anyone either. We just had to choose not to. They taught us how to choose.